everybody, it's Dr. Evelyn from Pet Nutrition Doctor, and we are joined today by Julie McLaughlin from CanineJulz, a training facility in Southern California. Julie is the founder and certified dog trainer there. She has over 10 years experience working with therapy dogs and rescue dogs. She works with service dogs, and she even rehabilitates dogs from the shelters to help them improve their behavior so that they can find their forever home. But she really likes to work with behavior modification and communication, dog aggression, reactivity. She likes to read the dog's body language, and she likes to teach owners how to communicate with their dogs, which I think is really the most important part of it. We just need to understand what they're trying to tell us, because really what we consider to be an abnormal behavior may be perfectly normal. We're just not understanding the communication. So, Julie, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited for our talk.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me, Dr. Evelyn.
Can you tell us, do you feel that there is a relationship with what a dog eats and what they can learn?
Definitely feel like there is a relationship between dogs learning and their diet.
What kind of things have you seen to give you that impression?
So we'll go into a little bit of the background where I dove into nutrition probably about 5-6 years ago. And I really started seeing the transition there where a lot of my dogs that I was training were on kibble and they were a little sluggish sometimes, especially with my older dogs. And I saw when they transitioned to a raw diet or a dehydrated diet or even cooked diet, the dogs seemed so much more like a light went on in their eyes. They were spunkier. They were willing to do more. It seemed like their drive was through the roof. It just seemed to invigorate them. So that's what I've seen with my older dogs and my puppies. It just seems like they have more of a drive for learning when they have an adequate, balanced diet.
That's fantastic. And I've heard the same thing when I transition my clients or my patients over to a whole food diet, whether it's cooked or raw. They tell me it's almost immediate. Within a few days, they can see just a change in their behavior. They seem to feel better. They're more alive. They're more alert. They're just happier.
Yeah.
And I think that's fantastic. What about behavioral issues? Have you seen behavioral issues that you think improve when you change the diet?
I definitely have seen some behavior issues. Well, for one is some of them definitely do seem less anxious almost, where I guess it's more or less where they just seem more focused on the task at hand. A lot of it probably is because their belly doesn't hurt and they're not out going to the bathroom multiple times. So that's kind of what I've seen.
That's great. And I think about it the same way. If you send a kid to school with just a donut in their stomach, mm-hmm. and you expect them to learn, we know that doesn't work very well. They can't concentrate, they can't focus. And a lot of these kibbles are full of carbohydrates. And so they're really doing pretty much the same thing. And, just like with us, the processed foods do affect the microbiome that's in there. And, there's a lot of studying being done right now in terms of that whole gut-brain connection. Yes. And we know that microbiome is speaking to the brain. We've got the vagus nerve that goes directly from the brain to the gut. We know we get that tight stomach when we get nervous, and so do they, right? In the exam room, their whole gut gets tight when they're nervous. So there's that full connection, and I love that you see, it's kind of another piece of evidence to show that, yes, what they eat really makes a difference. Now, you had mentioned about your own dog or your new dog. Can you tell us that story? Because I think that's fascinating. I think that's really a great example too.
Yeah, definitely. So Huckleberry is my boyfriend's new service dog. But when we first got him, he came in and did a training retreat with me. And he was very anxious and would not eat food. So we switched him over to a raw diet. We asked mom, of course, if it was okay. And within a couple days, he was totally a different dog, like would scarf down all his food, was willing to work for treats. Just like I said before, a light just went on inside him. He was just so excited to like be in the world almost, where before he was just had so much anxiety and so filled with fear.
Right.
So I think it was just so beautiful that being able to communicate with the food became a good motivator for him as a reward, where he could be like, oh, all right, light bulb, you want me to do this and I earn this. It was just really black and white for him, which in return gave him the confidence to want to do things and explore things that were new. So it was really beautiful to see the change happen.
That's impressive. That's a really direct change that you can see, and it does make so much sense. I mean, if I've got a stomach ache, I don't really want to do something for somebody, right? I don't really want to work. I don't care what you give me as a reward. It's just not going to do anything for me. So just to change that diet, and you're changing the microbiome too. When you're feeding kibble that's high carbohydrate and high processed, you're really supporting a whole different population of bacteria than you are when you're feeding real food. And I think that our cells in our gut really, I mean, evolutionarily wise, we were designed to eat food and get information from real whole food. You give them these chemicals and they just don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
So I think that's really interesting. And you had made some comments too about puppies that have had parvo, that have survived parvo, which is a very severe intestinal infection. It literally can denude or kind of destroy that lining of the gut where that microbiome lives. And this is the critical time when puppies or any kind of infant is creating their microbiome that's going to take them through life. And that microbiome is critical for so many other things. So tell me what you've seen in some of these dogs that have recovered, they've done well, and what kind of issues are you finding in them?
Yep. So normally what I see with my surviving parvo puppies that are now, I see some that are adult and I see some that are juveniles. But what I've seen is a lot of food guarding behavior with them. They are very uncomfortable. They're very scatterbrained almost. They can't focus on what we're trying to communicate. They also, some of them have self-destructive behaviors where there's a lot of chewing on skin, and a lot of, like, I have a shepherd now, he does like a lot of spinning and he's just not comfortable. He's just not settled. He's just not focused. And it's just been, it's hard to see.
That's really sad, and it makes a lot of sense. You know, from a veterinarian standpoint, we don't always get that connection, but it's interesting as a trainer, you get to see that. But it does make perfect sense. And you know, you think about even autistic children, one of the big issues with every autistic child is they have gut issues. They have a gut microbiome that is imbalanced, and that's affecting their behavior. So it makes perfect sense that if you have a really severe intestinal infection early on in life, and we're not making that effort to heal the gut and heal that microbiome, we have the potential of causing problems. And I will say, one of the things that you can, even talk to people if you know that their puppy is just recovered, getting them out in nature is one of the big things, because we want that diversity. Probiotics are good to a point, but you can only have 10 or 12 in any particular pill. And there's thousands and thousands of different types of organisms in our gut. And the best way to get those is just out in the wild. But eating real whole food, eating the types of food that are designed to be in that gut and to feed the proper bacteria are going to be the best that we can do to heal these guys. And I think that's going to give them the best opportunities. And then I think starting with training early on, just again, like to use that same relationship with autistic children, the more that we intervene early on, the more we can help these guys. And so I love that you're seeing some of these dogs in their early stages and you're able to really help them get through that. So that's great. And really dealing with anxiety, I wanted to move on to the next thing is we're here in COVID and we're all isolated and my dog is loving it, right? I'm home all the time, but I start to walk out that door and she's like, where are you going? Wait a minute. Am I coming with you? And, she never went with me in the car. She's gone a couple of times, but now if I go out to the garage, she thinks she's coming. Mm-hmm. So I can see this wave of separation anxiety coming once we go back to work. Yeah. Do you have some suggestions for pet owners, for dog owners, even cats? How can we help them to minimize that anxiety when we do go back to work and allow them to be more confident to be alone?
Thank you. That's a wonderful question. Truthfully, give them a job. Give them something to do. Give them some alone time. Like, it's okay for them to be on a place command in resting with a bone or a Kong or something that is going to really spark their interest. Or it's okay to have them have a little downtime in the crate or have a play date where you bring them to like a doggy daycare or a friend's house, somewhere you're not participating in. Because what that does is build their dog's confidence on their own. And that's something as owners, myself included, how to kind of figure out, because I have a German Shepherd and she follows me everywhere. Right. So I had to also create that separation where I would leave her in her crate for a little while with a treat or something. And before we leave to go out the door, set a routine. If we notice that our dogs get anxious when we're putting on our shoes or when we're grabbing our purse or our keys, notice the behavior and then give them something to do. Give them a direction. Because if we let them, the longer we let them sit in their anxiety, the more the wheels start spinning. And by the time we get to the door, we're having a full-blown tantrum. Right. And that's not the time to do any work with anyone. So that's my recommendation.
I love that. I think those are great suggestions, and it is important for these dogs to really understand that it's okay to be on their own. One of the things that I see a lot, not necessarily separation anxiety, but maybe a little bit, is these dogs that come into the exam room and they're super anxious. And of course, the first thing the owners do is put them in their lap, and I'm like, no, put them on the floor, tell them to sit down, tell them it's okay to be here, that you're in charge. And I think that's one of the big things is to let the dog know that they don't have to take on the role of guardian. They don't have to be doing something. They can trust their owner. And I know you talk about really building that connection with the owner, that communication and that bond. Tell me how you do that and how can owners really help to build that bond? Because I think that's amazing.
You got it. Well, a lot of it in the beginning with dog training was trial and error with my German Shepherd. One great agility. We love doing agility. It really got her to experience new things, and it got my direction and my communication, and it was all positive in the beginning. Like, you always want to start with no judgment. Also, a great way to build your bond, believe it or not, is scent work. I love it. So for food or dinner time, take some of their food and hide it around the house. That way, not only are they building confidence on their own, but they're taking direction from you too and being able to work as a team. Or obedience or fly ball or fetch, like anything that gets your dog jazzed, get into it. Find out what they like to do. Amstel and I went through a lot of stuff. And she finally found that her calling was therapy work. And that's what we did. She didn't really like obedience, but she loved therapy work. She loved people. Like, she just had a knack for it. She saw someone in pain and she would just go over and provide comfort. And that really was, it took years to find, but the more I paid attention, it's almost like they lead us down this path of what they're best suited for. So I guess challenge yourself to listen to your dog and pay attention to what, I don't know, invigorates them. Same thing like us.
Boy, I love that. I absolutely love that. I know one of the things that I talk to owners about, especially when you can tell when the puppy comes in and they're super intelligent, right? You can just tell that these dogs are thinking, their wheels are spinning, they're looking for ways to get into trouble in the exam room, but you know that they're just constantly thinking. And I tell people, you've got to give this dog a job. And I know one thing that Kimberly did with our dog when she was young is there's no free lunch, right? There was no free meal. Everything you had to work for. And so I tell people, if you don't give this dog a job, he's going to find one and you're not going to like it. So find something he likes to do. And I love that idea of just trying to find what works for that dog. It's what we do with our kids, right? We try and find what their interest is, and you have to try a lot of things just to see what's going to work best. So I love that. And I guess that leads in really well to the last question, which is really, it's, we just went through Christmas. I just actually did a day in the clinic, which is unusual for me, but I saw 6 new puppies. It was wonderful. I got to play with puppies all day long. But these are puppies that, they've been with mom, they've been with their litter mates for the last 6 to 8 weeks, and all of a sudden they're in this new environment. How can these new owners help these puppies to transition so that they can be a good member of the family and not be so anxious about that transition?
Yeah, this is great. So we start with leadership, which, like you mentioned, no free lunch. We can start with that with puppies right away. I follow a fella, dog trainer on Instagram, and he does box feeding with the dog. So it helps the dog almost gain that confidence to get food. So they're working for it. Also, too, I'm a big fan of hooking up a leash to yourself, and where you go, the puppy goes. A lot of people kind of forget that just because we have our life and dinner is at 6 and movie time starts at 8, our puppies don't have that schedule. How do we teach them to get to that point? It starts with leadership, and it starts with modeling behavior. So a lot of my puppies, like outside is playtime. Inside is we're learning a place command, or we're learning to help the mind calm down. So it's also those windows of behavior that we really need to recognize and notice and guide them to the right behavior that really meshes with the family. Because a lot of the time, that's where I see conflicting behaviors, is where mom and dad are sitting down and the dog goes, "Hello, do you see this tennis ball in my mouth? I would like to play now." You can still give them a job and something to do, but it's just not going to be fetch.
I love that. And I think there's also a point where there's got to be a give and take, right? All relationships take work. It's not just teaching the dog to fit into your lifestyle. You have to give a little bit. You've taken on this responsibility of the puppy, and we need to set aside the time. So thank you so much, Julie, for joining us today. I think that was wonderful information. I am so happy that we can bring this out to so many people. I think it's just so valuable. I do the food end of it. You do the behavior end of it, but really we're both holistic, right? We both think about the whole dog, and that's their environment, that's their behavior, that's their lifestyle and their food and everything else. And so I love that you brought all that information to us. Can you tell people how to reach you and how to find you if they need help? And if they're not in Southern California, can you help them?
Yes, definitely. So you can reach me on Instagram and Facebook at CanineJulz, or you can go directly to my website, which is www.caninejulz.com, or you can email me at julz@caninejulz.com. And yes, I offer Zoom lessons. So I have clients in Colorado and Massachusetts. It doesn't matter where you live. It just matters that you're dedicated to your dog and you're willing to try to work as a team.
That's fantastic. That's great. And it's CanineJulz, just so that people know how to reach you. But I think that's fantastic. And this whole COVID thing with us being cooped up, I think in a lot of ways it's really helped. I can now reach out and reach people across the country, and you can too. And I think that's huge because, before we were limited to who was in our area. So Julie, thank you so much for joining us. I think this has been fabulous, and I know that it's going to help so many pets.
Awesome. Thank you so much.